G'day, Asia Mahar here. Just want to follow up my last video. Where I was really feeling a lot. And I've been in and out of feeling a lot since Wednesday. And now it's Saturday, July 24th or something. I don't know. But the message, the reason why I shared that processing when I found out that my mother had died June 14th, but I found out on July 22nd. And I shared a piece of 5.5 hours or more of my processing and feeling the pain and being with the grief and letting it go. Because I already radically accepted what never was. My mother was not able to love me. My mother didn't love herself. My mother hated herself, didn't feel deserving of anything, at least not emotionally, right? And this is what happens to so many people. Whether you are the adult child, I was, but whether you are the adult child of a borderline or a BPD, NPD comorbid or a narcissist or narcissist, etc. But what's true if right now you are still obsessed with the borderline X or narcissistic X, but you're giving all your here and now moments away to them, to that focus, to that thought, to that keeping thinking about them because, well, why do people do that? Oh, is it just a cognitive dissonance? Is it just, when I say just, I don't mean to minimize, is it just cognitive dissonance? Is it just rumination? Is it a focus that you can't help because you have codependency? It's the reality of the avoidance. And maybe what society's devolving into, it's the avoidance of your pain. It's the avoidance of grief. It's the avoidance of utter reality. Like I shared in the video that went up on July 22nd that I did, I processed all that July 21st. Which doesn't mean I'm done. Which doesn't mean I don't have any more feelings. But what makes it so doable? Why could I just share like that in real time? And my tears, I was fine. That, I feel it right now again. It's like that tightness in here. Because there's feelings in there right now. And sometimes they flow. And sometimes you sometimes just have to breathe through that pain. And parts of it will release that way too. But if you're still obsessed with the borderline X or the on and off again, or like I did a live stream the other night, but I didn't leave it up because it was too long and there was just some things and, but somebody on that live stream, person with codependency, as they said, who can't break it off with the borderline in their life, who was who's an addict in a substance, chronic, how'd they put it, relapser. They have a young child. And this person admitted that their reactionary emotions from this really trauma-bonded relationship that they know they're tired of, but they can't let go, but they can't just make the statement to the person that they can't do the relationship anymore. And they even admitted, as I had said something, and then they typed back, they admitted, because I know it's about what I need too. So here's the challenge, right? So that person, their child, that person with codependency, their child is young and their child is already stressed and their child has already been damaged and affected somehow, to one degree or another. And so they were like, but I still don't know why I can't let go. I don't know why I don't want to tell the person because I need... Well, you know what? Let me just kind of fuse it to my last video, because I needed my mother. Oh, not for a lot of years, but when I was a child, I needed my mother. Did it mean that I had a mother that was emotionally available? It wasn't a cluster B? No. So then what happens? Well, people with the trauma of these over-pathologized realities, which they hurt people. But people that stay with the obsession and keep fighting the reality that the relationship isn't working, it doesn't work. They don't know how to love you, and you don't know how to love them. Or if you actually love them as I loved my mother, in spite of it all. There's no shame in that, I realize, in this grieving process. That I loved my parents. I loved the sibling. But I didn't get it back. Right? If they didn't have it, it wasn't there. Which, of course, is trauma. It was trauma for me many years ago and from my childhood. But what we have to do is adult. And I believe still strongly that is the process in therapy. But your obsession with the borderline, or maybe you're focused on a BPD, NPD, or comorbidly, a narcissist or borderline parent as well, and or an ex. We live in a culture now that just suggests that we're supposed to have anything we want or something. We've been acculturated and inculcated with mass consumption. And mass consumption, if you think about it in an emotional sense, you just want to love who you love. You need who you need. Or some combination of the two. But some people in this world can't love. Don't love. Don't see you. Won't hear you. It's not about you. But you hang in there because you felt something. And you derive something from that relationship, that person who you thought they were, that isn't really real. That you need to derive now in your own therapy healing process. That you need to find from within yourself, that you need to go back to the first broken open place. I've always looked at things in my life, but wouldn't say I've had breakdowns or anything like that recently, no. But it's breaking down, right? Hurting to break through. And you need to feel the fear and do it anyway and get out of the denial. Because, I've had so many clients and people have said things across this channel. Well, I just lost 5 years of my life. I just lost 10 years of my life, 15 years of my life, whatever it is. I can't get the time back. So then the best thing you can do right now is radically accept what was, radically accept what is right now. You can't get that time back, you're right. Nor can you make them love you, nor can you rescue, fix, and change them. So why are you still focused on the person with BPD or the person with NPD or the person with the trauma response known as BPD? Hey, quiet, Jake! Or the person with the trauma response known as NPD, and I don't mean to be minimizing what that means. People are not accepting what is. People are wanting what they want. People are feeling desperate need in some cases for what they need. And when we're children, that happens. And that's the stuff of children. Because we need to emotionally mature and adult beyond that. And people with codependency, still obsessed with that borderline ex, what they did. It's all over the internet, right? My borderline did this, my borderline did that. I could say, well, my mother did this, my mother did that, my mother didn't do this, my mother didn't do... No, but instead I decided to go through a process of recovery many years ago. And then I let go that my mother was never going to be the mother or the person, or that I wanted her to be, that I needed her to be when I was a kid, that we were never going to have a connection in this life. I had to do the same work with my father. I understood this midway through my healing recovery, even like 33, 40 years ago. I just realized that we need to radically accept what is, not chase after what we want someone, who we want them to be or how we want them to be, or let's pathologize them some more and call them evil Jezebel spirits and all that kind of crap. Because what's that do? It keeps you out of your precious, yes, catastrophic, horrible pain. But if you will just go there and radically accept it, and that's what I work with clients to do. You know, some people, most people need therapy to learn how to face the pain and the grief and to build the coping skills around that, because it's not something that is a natural thing in life anymore. In the way that we live and intergenerationally, the way that things go in families of origin. Ask yourself today why you're so focused on the borderline, the narcissist, or maybe you're so focused on a parent with BP, NPD, whatever, that wasn't there for you, that wasn't able to love you. What's one thing I accepted a long time ago that allowed me to go through July 21st, even though my mother died on June 14th, and that terse email I got to explain, like, just that I was a beneficiary and what's my address for the check. Didn't say what date my mother died. Didn't say that my mother died. It just indicated that. It didn't give me any closure. But why am I working through my closure right now? And it hurts sometimes, but it's okay that it hurts sometimes. Because I'm not invested at all in why wasn't my mother something other than what she was. Why wasn't my mother more empathic at all? Why wasn't my mother able to love? Why wasn't my father able to love? Why? I don't know, maybe the sibling, but point being, I could block myself out of this journey this experience that I have waited decades for, actually. There would be the day when I would know that my mother had passed away, so I could finish my work, my closure, my grieving. But because I did all this work years ago in therapy, it means that I'm not shocked or stunned or under any misbelief anymore, or in any way codependently trying to hang on to what wasn't there, or that it's too overwhelming. It's not too overwhelming to admit to myself that my mother hated me. Still a little tender, but my mother hated me, had contempt for me. So what people that are wounded in these ways, it's all they have to give. And it's not giving anything, is it? They take. And if you're the kid of one of them, then they parentify you. Well, they scapegoat you. Unless you're the golden child. And then if you were or you are, well, that's not going to be a bed of roses either. So what I'm seeing online, and what I'm trying to be a different voice about here, and showed you some of my process from the day I found out my mother died 5 or 6 weeks ago, is to say, feel the fear and go to what's real anyway. And don't try to codependently replace it with what you need and what you wanted and what you wish for and what you desire, because you've got right now, wherever you are with your codependency, with a borderline ex, within a relationship with an adult parent, you've got exactly what reality and the harsh side of life has given you. The question now isn't, why did the borderline do this? Why did the narcissist do that? I would say, why was my mother like this? Why couldn't my mother? No. The reality now is that it is what it is. And the next question is, so what are you going to do about it for you? There's no way over the pain, around the pain, under the pain. You can't put blinkers on and not know that there's agony waiting for your attention. Your valuable time and attention in lifespans that don't go on forever. What are you doing? And I say this with compassion, but what are you doing? You have to take a new direction on this channel. I know that now. And maybe 5 people will watch every video I put up. But radical acceptance of what was is a process of grief unto itself. I had done that already before my, this thing with the family of origin, finding out my mother died like weeks ago. On the 21st of July that I found that out. Well, but I was preparing for that day for years. Pre-grieving, having radically accepted what was, having done my healing work, recovery work to that point, so that I would be free to be where I needed to be when that information came, and how that felt, how it still, some of how it feels. But I'm not railing against the reality. And that's what people with codependency are doing. So people that have the trauma response known as BPD or NPD, well, people with NPD get more lost and they don't feel their feelings, and it's much more formidable. But people with BPD are still railing against their woundedness, their trauma. They're not in therapy. Many aren't in therapy to resolve it. Well, this is going on also for people with codependency, a vast number of people with codependency. Are you going to stay in that camp? I've got, I thank everybody, by the way, for the comments on the last video. And like I said in that video, in the midst of, it was hard to breathe because of the pain. And and I was in pain, and I was expressing that pain, and I was crying, and I was weeping, but I was grieving, and I was moving through a lot of that pain. And I said I was okay. I don't think the average person watched very far into that video to know that I said that this is okay, that I'm okay, that is vulnerability. I was trying to show you, just because I put on a camera and processed in real time, which is what I tend to do. I either do it in audio or video. I don't always put it up on YouTube, but then I don't always have a moment, like a time like that, which is a milestone moment in life. It was for my mother, who passed away, 6 weeks before I found out. But I'm glad that she went peacefully. I'm glad that she's gone, not for me, but for her, because she was suffering greatly in this life, and especially since my father had passed away. And it doesn't matter that we weren't connected, I healed all that, let that go. I was never going to have the mother or father that I needed when I was a kid, that I longed for, that I pursued for some years into my late 20s, and then still had to do grief work at that point, because I knew I had to let go and get on with my life. So what is it about your life? What is it about yourself what's wounded you in your childhood? I'm out here to work with you if I resonate with you, so you can find out these answers. What wounded you in your childhood to such a degree that you don't want to face it, that you fear it, that you'd rather stay obsessed with the borderline ex or pursue the relationship because you're not stopping to get into therapy, to do your work, to find out what is the core of your pain that's creating for you now the need to obsess on someone else, abandon yourself, and want what you can't have and want what isn't there, instead of finding your way to healing, grieving, understanding your past, etc., and then the relationship that you got into, and healing your codependency, and not just healing from the borderline ex, but healing from your family of origin and your childhood trauma, so that you can be steadfast in this moment, in any moment, any here and now moment, with reality, instead of what your dreams were, or instead of what your false hope still is. Because you're losing more and more time, and you're never going to get that back either. And I had to do grieving in my therapy work for the time that I lost. I didn't have a very, averagely healthy, of course not, adolescence or family of origin. And then even when I was in my 20s and working hard in therapy, etc., by the time I recovered, healed and recovered from the family of origin, the narcissistic abuse, the sexual abuse, the physical abuse, the psychological, emotional, all that stuff, and healed and recovered from BPD, and have healed and recovered from the codependency now, which took longer than the other. But how did all of that happen? Well, because I guess somewhere inside of myself, many people take these journeys. Somewhere inside of myself, I realized that isn't there a song, you can't always get what you want? Can't always get what you need. Don't need a song for that, because it's just reality. So people that are still obsessing on the cluster Bs, as we so call them, and people that are in that dichotomy of they're all bad because they hurt you or they traumatized you, you're blocking your way forward, and you're increasing your suffering, and you're increasing your pain, and you're still blaming them for it. You got to get out of denial. It will help you to get out of denial. It will help you to feel the fear and do it anyway. And in that live stream that I didn't leave up for a plethora of reasons, but somebody else shared that when they saw the video that I did, that went up on July 22nd, but that was my real-time processing from July 21st, when I found out that my mother had died, 6 weeks prior, and in a very cold and terse way. That's the way, that's how it goes, right? We need to radically accept what it is. And so somebody else said in the live stream I did last night about, there's a reason why it's not up, and it was way too long. But somebody said, seeing what I shared in the video and what I was processing in real time made that kind of grief and pain and process look a little less scary. And the reason that I shared that with you out there that watch this channel is because, and you should really watch that whole video, you really should. Because if you stopped at the average watch time mark where most people stopped, maybe there's something else you would benefit from hearing there, if I can suggest that. So if you're still obsessed with the borderline or the narcissist or in the narrative of the dichotomy that these are horrible people, if they're even people, and you know what that means? You think you're better than them when you think that way. But you're just not facing your reality. You're just not facing what is. Because a lot of what is, when we radically accept what is, a lot of what is at any given moment in a lifetime, is not going to be what we would have chosen. Is not going to be what we wanted. But it's all we've got. And it's what we need to deal with. So I don't want to say really how it was communicated to me. Somebody wrote and said that they believe that their BPDX is a mix of BPD, sociopathy, and narcissism. I went and looked something up online about sociopathy, and I saw one of the most ridiculous definitions of something I've ever seen in my life that crosses over, because sociopathy is just an interchangeable word for psychopathy. But you see, all this stuff that's going on in the world, all this stuff is leading you in the wrong direction. Oh, did that person you were with, were they borderline? Were they a narcissist? If they were borderline, were they 10 other things? That's not the point, is it? That's how you continue to escape your pain. How much can I vilify that person so I can feel better about myself? That's what so many people are doing out there. And I don't mean to sound, I'm just keeping it real to help you heal. And I'm just saying, get out of denial and feel the fear. Learn how to grieve. I had to learn how to grieve in therapy. Most people have to learn how to grieve in therapy, because we're not shown how to grieve anymore in this sort of sanitized, although deconstructive is falling apart world, right? No, there's too much distraction. There's too much here. Have this. You want that. You can have this, that, the other thing. And how many people are wanting a person or a relationship or love for all the wrong reasons? And it's not love. Because wherever there's abuse, there's the absence of love. And great sex is great sex, but great sex ain't love. Not by the definition of it. So if you're still obsessed with a person in cluster B, in any relationship type, here's what I want you to really hear. You need to get real with you. You need to radically accept what is, not what you hoped for, not what you wanted, not who you thought they were, not what you needed when you were a child, etc. You need to be in this here now moment, take one action step, get into therapy so you can deal with your core woundedness from childhood so that you can properly adult. And if you're walking in the river of the denial, you're just going to be standing in the middle of a river dying of thirst because you can't see the reality that's all around you because you're too busy looking for something else that you want, that you desire. Pain is a fantastic teacher. When I was crying for over, really off and on, it was 6 to 9 hours on Wednesday, July 21st, 21, when I got that terse email and found out my mother had died 5 to 6 weeks prior. And that, I also lost among her possessions, some of my possessions. I also lost some really heartfelt things that were mine, number one, from her mother. That, number two, I would have maybe cherished something of hers to just as a memento, right? But none of that was reality. None of that was going to happen because it had all been dealt with and, I wasn't privy to it. And so, yeah, could say that did they hurt me more? Did they punish me with that? I don't even care. Because no, they didn't hurt me more. Because if I radically accept what is, I can deal with that. And so too could you. So please hear me. If you're still in this obsessed place, you don't know how to grieve. You're not really feeling your feelings. You're in denial. Could be codependency, whatever it is. And the dichotomous narrative online in the YouTube echo chamber that the borderlines and the narcissists are horrible and somehow the codependents are better is just an entire waste of your time. It's another part of your walking in the river denial while you're dying of thirst and you can't understand why it hurts so much because you won't look at the real reasons, because you aren't getting into therapy to look at, if you haven't already, to look at your core woundedness and to learn, that's right, learn how to grieve. Radical acceptance of what is versus your desire for all that you hoped it was, thought it was, it might have been, could it still be. Be in the here and now with radical acceptance. Get into therapy. And with all due respect, people with codependency, learn how to adult. Yes, you're adults logically. Yes, you have careers. Yes, you're intelligent people. But you haven't adulted emotionally. And the more we were wounded as children, the more core wounds you're still carrying, because I'm not still carrying my core wounds. The more core wounds you're still carrying, the more you're going to be in a childlike way, wanting what you want, desiring what you desire, needing what you want, whether it's there or not. I hope this was helpful to somebody, and I don't know the direction of the channel, but I could still explain things about BPD. I could do that kind of thing. I still work with clients, but I'm not going to buy into this dichotomy anymore. And people can express whatever they want, but I would challenge you, if you think your BPD is also having secondary psychopathy and some kind of narcissism and everything's the same, A, that's just not true. And B, why do you care to make it so? What is it that you need and want so bad in that dichotomous thinking that you're willing to keep increasing your own pain and suffering for now, willing to avoid your work in therapy, and willing to continue to not radically accept what is? So when people want to say the borderline doesn't live in reality, or, well, maybe today each person with codependency could benefit from looking at what reality are you living in? And I mean that seriously. Where are you? What is driving your want for what you want? You gotta get what you never had from a cluster B, versus finding out who you are, so you can radically accept what is and live mindfully in the moment, in the here and now, an adult, and feel much better. And right, on the journey to feeling much better, in many iterations and times of our lives, it will require grief. It will require going through the pain of letting go. It's doable. It's your choice. I hope you'll at least think about it.